Hello and welcome back to Racing Weekly, a podcast and YouTube show brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. Tanya Stevenson is back on the show. Steve Ryder, as always, on my left. Tanya, I'll start with you and a quick summary of your sentiments about the quality of action we saw at the Ebor Festival in the Naves Mile.
Once again, we were very lucky. And I think we ought not just to focus on the winners. There were some good horses that finished mid-division, which hopefully you allow me to expand upon in kind of, if when you ask me about anything else, because they're not within the real big marquee races. But I think we were absolutely treated, weren't we, to some different forms of each of the big races that we normally see.
Yes, and the subject of pacemakers once again playing a significant part in discussion, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, the Jumpman International itself was just a fascinating race to watch. And it has been a whole story of the whole season of who is going to get the pacemakers right. Because if you think back to the Coronation Cup, Ballydor got it spot on with continuous lead in Jan Bruegel. It all went wrong at Royal Ascot. Didn't have one in the Eclipse, which made that a mess. Had one here and it nearly went all wrong as well. And we haven't even touched on the Sussex Stakes.
No, I just wanted to ask you on the subject of the pacemakers. I mean, renowned commentator and colleague of ours back in the day, Simon Holt, was suggesting that we should ban pacemakers from races because they're not running on their true merits. What were your thoughts about that suggestion?
Well, there's many debates about and surrounding pacemakers. Like Simon says, ban. There are some that think that they should be taken out for betting purposes, but they have been coupled like France, but they have been part of the fabric of the sport and the confusion and the discussion for many years. And there will be no right or wrong answer. It's another thing that polarises with these discussions. And had we have thought this, had we seen Kirat, would we have been so sort of in this explosion of thought with Burr Castle, had Kirat not have happened?
Yeah. That's a fair point because obviously it's topical at the moment after the back-to-back situations. What are your thoughts on the utilisation of pacemakers?
I enjoy a pacemaker. I like the fact that when you look at a race, you generally can then get a grasp of how it is. I think particularly Aidan O'Brien has become trying to be too clever with them recently and put in a horse that you think is going to go fast and then slow it down. I remember thinking back into Dawn Approach in the Derby. Yeah. Everyone thought they were going to go hard and use his stamina, where actually they did the opposite, slowed it down, made him keen in the early stages and did it that way. And I just think a pacemaker should be there to set even fractions and ensure the best horse wins the race. But when Aidan O'Brien has so much firepower generally, if he doesn't think he has the best horse in the race, that then allows his 3, 4, 5 runners in order to do what's best for his horse, which I completely understand. But yeah, it's an interesting debate, but I definitely wouldn't ban them.
No, I'm similar. Historically, obviously the Grundy Bustino, there were 2 pacemakers for Bustino before he eventually took over and tried to run the sting out of Grundy. Didn't work. And I don't think the pacemakers are the problem so much as the way the riders behind deploy their tactics in relation to the pacemaker. They sit, so obviously you're sat so far off, and similar story with Kirat, they just gave him too much rope. So maybe that's something to bear in mind. Okay, it'll come up in discussion when we have a look back at this week's racing recap. And naturally, we start with the best race of the week. In fact, it's the best race internationally, almost annually, the Juddmonte International. Ombudsman is the horse who took the spoils in the end, but for a large majority of the race, standing in the paddock at York, a lot of people were looking around going, what's happening here, as Burr Castle was 20-plus lengths clear?
They were indeed, and my thoughts were, and I'm sure others were, was Kirat in the Sussex. And initially, they came out of the stalls, and I was thinking, why are they all sat behind Dan Under Seal? Why? That's just held, and the others were sat behind this really snail's pace. And it wasn't until they turned for home, and because they all sat behind the Japanese raider, it was another avenue that Rab Havlin thought, well, here we go. And we're not sitting on a slouch either. We're sitting on an Andre Fabre horse that had run well, finished third to Jereby hadn't it? I think the season before, so it wasn't a slouch, and that's
not far
also,
behind Ace Impact.
Yeah, that's also why it's come to mind. But then you started to see the ground being made up by Ombudsman, and then you related back after the race to the Coral Eclipse, where Ombudsman himself had hit the front and became the pacemaker for Delacroix to aim at. This is at Sandown, and then reverse psyche. You had Burcastle out in front, and Delacroix could not match, and the 3-year-old allowance also just reduced a little bit, meant that small distance that almost were won by. It was 3.5 lengths, meant that Delacroix couldn't get to him. But Delacroix, I think, ran a bit of his race in the preliminaries. He does tend to do that. If you watched him at Leopardstown, when he came out onto the track, he raced he was a bit cheeky. He was a bit cheeky at Epsom as well, where he finished well behind when he was favourite for the Derby. But do we have round 3? I hope we do have round 3. That may well be in Ireland. But then once again, do they go to Andre Fabre to help with a pacemaker? But because you know that there'll be plenty pacemakers maybe for Aidan. Round 3 will all be very interesting.
Well, I hope we see more of them. I hope they go to Ireland. But John Gosden said after the race, all's well that ends well, I think was the sentiment overall about the race. How good is Ombudsman now that we've seen him in 3 different scenarios at Group 1 level this season, where he's only been beaten narrowly by Delacroix in 1 race?
I mean, he's a very good horse. He's testament to the way that Goddens have trained, really, because he went over to France, had a very quiet 3-year-old campaign, and this season has really stepped up a level. He's gone back up a pound to his rating of 128, which we all on the show last week thought was a little bit high after that mess of a Prince of Wales Stakes. But, I mean, going into the race, you kind of thought, right, Delacroix probably has the better turn of foot from what we thought in the Coral Eclipse. He was the one that you thought could drop down to a mile. But actually, if you look at the race IQ data, it's Ombudsman that's got the best turn of foot late on here. A top speed of 41.13 miles per hour in comparison to Delacroix, who was 40.77. 109%, I think, was the finishing speed percentage. They didn't go silly in front. I think Rab's horse only finished with 99% finishing speed percentage. So actually, he judged it really well. He actually gave his horse a breather in order to then try and win the race down the straight. Daniel Deseal just completely boiled over beforehand. And I just thought in that scenario, you just let him use his big, long stride and actually try and do it. I didn't think that... Yes, okay, he might have lost the race in the preliminaries anyway, but I didn't think the way he was ridden for a horse that stays 1.5 miles well was the best way to ride him. But Ombudsman is going to be a fascinating rematch, hopefully, in the Irish Champion Stakes. I think he's 6-4 with Bet365 for the Irish Champion Stakes. I think whizzing off that bend at Leopardstown, I think with that turn of foot...
You can drive a bit.
Yeah, will be really, really fascinating. You'd imagine probably a change of tactics with Delacroix. I imagine they'll go back to either sitting more prominent or actually making the pace with him. But it's interesting to what you say. I remember when he unseated Wayne Lorden on the...
So naughty.
Yeah, on the way to the start in one of his starts at Leopardstown. He was then unruly in the preliminaries of the Derby. So he does have that in it. But yeah, I'm ready for round 3.
6-4 with Bet365, as Steve says, for the Irish Champion Stakes. Delacroix 5-2, Shin Emperor 8, Zaran 8-1, and Matt 10s, World 10s, White Birch. Don't know exactly who else will line up for it, but Ombudsman, Delacroix lining up in the Irish Champion again. Where would you sit on that?
Well, I made sure I looked it up there. In 2014, the Jabbermont 1-2 was reversed in the Irish Champion with Australia and the Grey Gatsby, and in 2020. With Magical and Gaius, it was reversed. But then there are times where they've stayed the same. I would stick with Ombudsman because it seems as though he's just so powerful. Watching him just extracting the pacemaker out of it and seeing how he's progressed throughout the season with the Prince of Wales, even the slight defeat in the Eclipse, he already uses Group 1s at the moment, whereas Delacroix, I think it was his only 3rd Group 1, whereas Ombudsman he should be. He's an older horse, but yeah, for me it'd be Ombudsman.
Ombudsman against Delacroix?
Yeah, I'm changing teams. I was with Delacroix at both the Eclipse and the Jabbermont International, but yeah, I was really impressed with Ombudsman.
Well, it'd be quite exciting to have another Irish Champion Stakes. Of course, the Irish Champion, you go back in history, Godolphin, I admitted
Yes.
this is John Gosden against Coolmore, John and Thady Gosden, and Galileo and Fantastic Light. The deployment of the pacemaker, was it Give the Slip?
Yeah.
One of the best use of it.
Yeah.
Great times back in the days. And also, just a brief word on the Champion Stakes, because, of course, that's also the plan for Ombudsman. He's 7-4 for that with Bet365, Calandagan 7-2, Anmart 8-1, Mini Hawk 8-1, Well 8-1. Obviously, there's an Irish champion to go ahead, but Ombudsman at 7-4. Delacroix 12s for that, but I don't know what route he will take from there on in. Any thoughts on those races? On that? Sorry, the Champions Stakes.
I always think the Champions Day is so hard to back anything anti-post with the weather.
The ground,
because it could change just the week before, go from good ground to soft ground.
Well, the reason I mentioned the Champions Stakes is because this is not thrown together. In the market for the Champions Stakes is a horse called Pride of Arras at 20-1 with Bet365. Now, going in to the Ebor Festival, if someone offered you 20-1 for the Champions Stakes with Pride of Arras, you'd have laughed at them because that would have been a ridiculously short price. However, he's back to form, Steve. The gelding operation has worked. Rafe Beckett said he wasn't sure what he would get from the horse, but this was like the Pride of Arras that we saw in the Dante.
Yeah, gelding operation, return to York, and bingo, back in. I like the fact that he found off the bridle because you didn't really see that in his debut win. He won the Dante easily. I know the form of that hasn't worked out too well, and you just thought, oh, hang on a minute. When you're under pressure, how much are you actually going to find? Yeah. And it was impressive. I liked that. I don't think there's many races where Ballydoyle will have 4 of the 7 runners and them ending up finishing 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th, but it just kind of went wrong for them. But I wouldn't hold that too much against the beaten horses. Aidan O'Brien, generally with his kind of autumn horses, gives them a little bit of a break, I think, mid-season, and then builds them back up. So I wouldn't say that's too negatively on Lambourne. I thought Stay True was arguably the horse to take out the race. That was his first race for 102 days off the track. And I thought that just showed in his finishing effort. Travelled arguably the best throughout the whole race. I thought Karma's actually enhanced his St Ledger claims. That was his first time dropping down to 1.5 miles, and I just thought the way that he stayed on at the finish, you could completely see his claims at Doncaster. And yeah, it's just going to be interesting to see where they all go.
I agree with you on Karma's. I actually think he probably ran better than the Bear as well because he was caught in that pocket. Yeah. He couldn't get out of it, and eventually when he did for a horse who's won over further, I thought he stood really nicely. Just the market for the St Ledger before we get Tanya's thoughts on this. Even Money Scandinavia, Lambourne 6-1, Lazy Griff 6-1, Karma's 9, Arabian Force who ran well in the Great Voltigeur. He's 12-1, Mini Hawk 12, Stay True, who Steve mentions, also 12-1. Those prices with Bet365. Tanya, what was your take on the race? Particularly, obviously we've heard about the winner, but Karma's and also Lambourne. What are your...
I think everyone was standing back when they saw that the Dual Derby winner Lambourne was in the race. This is a Group 2. And it showed when you look back through history how many times horses, Derby winners have come into this. That was 1987 was the last time a Derby winner had run in this. Yeah. That was Reference Point, who was just a machine in his own right. I wonder whether this was proving to Aidan and proving to everyone else, Scandinavia. The lights were flashing. This is just how good Scandinavia is, because I'll put Lambourne in what is potentially a Ledger trial. I think 15 have gone on to win the St Ledger, won the Great Voltigeur, plus Kew Gardens, who finished 3rd. And it was really, I think we came away a little bit disappointed with it. It was really flat with Lambourne. Yeah. Pride of Arras, it's great to see Pride of Arras back. Karma's, for me, was the hero of the contest, a Queen's Vase winner in the end, not being beaten far. And as you said, he hasn't got the pickup, but certainly like a York, a never-ending Doncaster straight. Should Scandinavia turn up at St Ledger, then it's going to be very hard for the likes of Karma's. Should it not turn up, then Karma's is in the driving seat, and away we go. You turn for home and you just set Karma's off, and you get a very happy Paddy Toomey. It told us tales that we needed to know, home truths regarding Lambourne, home truths regarding Scandinavia, and it was lovely to see Pride of Arras back. And as you said, champion stakes maybe. It depends on the ground, and there's other races maybe Pride of Aris can go for. We know the ones that he can't, sadly.
Yeah.
But that's what's made him good again.
Just on the Aidan O'Brien 3-year-olds, and I was asking this question to a couple of people at your last week. You've got a dual Derby winner in Lambourne. How far down the pecking order at just Ballydoyle is he? I mean, in terms of the 3-year-olds, and various distances, I'm happy to accept. You know, Delacroix is a mile and a quarter, possibly a mile. Mini Hawk, Whirl, Scandinavia.
Well, we said pre-show, didn't we?
Yeah.
We both Steve and I both said we thought that the two fillies, Mini Hawk and Whirl, were better than the Colts, and so it's proved.
Where would you have the dual Derby winner?
I know, that's the scary thing about it, but that's where we stand at the moment. That's where we stand this season.
Yeah.
Might be a little bit different next season with you.
Yes.
You see what went on at the weekend.
And again, not throwing this thing just by magic together.
Yes, go on.
Mini Hawk is the next one we'll talk about. Possibly, arguably, the best 3-year-old for Aidan O'Brien. Arguably, but others may have a different view. She won a small field Yorkshire Oaks. I thought it was a commanding performance. There was a moment where Strange came up alongside her, but I don't think Ryan Moore was ever really threatened on Mini Hawk, was he?
No, I don't think he was ever threatened on Mini Hawk as soon as the ground was what it was, and it didn't have soft in the going, because we saw Estrange what happened at Haydock. And Estrange had beaten a horse called Love Talk into third, who struggled to get up the hill at Pontefract, but then ran a superbly well, surprisingly excellent at York this week. But Estrange has got so much talent.
Yeah.
That just enhances how good Mini Hawk is. And you saw Estrange sort of accelerate on ground that didn't see, and you could see poor old David O'Mara's face. He knew it was too good not to go, and nothing was in his favour. So let's hope the pair of them meet again in the Arc. And the ground has the word soft in it for Estrange, but Mini Hawk is versatile in anything and is supreme. She's the 6-1 favourite with Bet365 for the Arc. Kalpana 7-1, Whirl 7-1. 3 very good fillies at the top of the market. Next in the market is Ombudsman at 14s. How do you view the Yorkshire Oaks in the context of what's to come for the rest of the season?
I love Mini Hawk. She's just so uncomplicated. She jumps, she settles, she quickens, and she handles all types of ground. Yeah. I know that the interviews afterwards were saying, if it's a soft ground Arc, we'll probably run Whirl, and if it's a better ground, then we'll probably run Mini Hawk, and the other one will go to the Breeders' Cup instead. But I couldn't dream of not running Mini Hawk in an Arc with all those allowances. She generally hadn't won by too far. I think when I looked at it, it was sort of 3/4 of a length, a neck, a length. Whereas here, 3.5 lengths, beating a really good filly in Estrange, and I was really, really impressed. If you look at the race IQ data, she had the longest stride length, fastest top speed, best finishing speed percentage. Job done. I thought I was really impressed.
Okay, if you had to pick something for the Arc now, so let's say good to soft ground for the Arc right now, where would you go?
I'd definitely be with Mini Hawk.
Mini Hawk.
I'd have to say Mini Hawk, but you'd have to do the forecast with Estrange because
she's 33-1 with Bet365.
I think that is quite big. Okay. But then there was a lot. You were trying to read David O'Mara's face. Of course, he was saying that he was going to speak to Cheveley Park Connections.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's got a wonderful stride on her as well.
Okay. Should also mention the Japanese horse, Croix du Nord, is 16-1. Very good horse. Okay, so that's a look back at the Yorkshire Oaks. The Lonsdale Cup, another good success for Trawlerman. He had to work much harder on this occasion than he did. Well, in fairness, it's pretty hard work in the Gold Cup, but in terms of his style of victory, he had to dig really deep.
I thought it was a really good ride by William Buick because it was kind of fascinating tactically. You had a few horses here who on paper wanted to force the pace, and I thought William Buick was very clever. He didn't allow Wayne Lorden an easy lead on Shackleton, put the pressure on, but actually tried not to light up Trawlerman by racing slightly away from him. It didn't work completely because he did race relatively keenly in the early stages, but ride him like the best horse in the race, come up sides, and you know that he's going to stay and you know that he's going to battle in a finish. And yeah, I was impressed with this, and I'm actually quite surprised that he's only 5-4 for the long distance cup. I know it's now been upgraded to a Group 1 for the first time this year, and I fully expect him to regain his crown, obviously after losing it to Kyprios last year.
Yeah, Scandinavia 7-2, Illinois 5-1, and 8 bar that. Kyprios exits stage left. It doesn't always happen that when the best horse is beating the same horse over and over again, moves away, that horse then takes command. But Trawlerman has certainly filled the slot of Kyprios with aplomb.
Yes, he seems to have, it sounds silly, matured and got better and better, because if you go back to his long distance cup runs, he was third initially to Trushan before he then won it himself, and then last year he was third behind Kyprios and his stable companion Sweet William. This year though, he's just held all before him, and he's grown into his own aura and his own position, and will great to see him at Ascot. Sweet William was running all the way to Tower Moor and getting himself ready for his Doncaster Cup. And no doubt he will be in the stable companion and in the long distance cup. So we'll see whether he can. I don't think he can, as for what we've seen in the Lonsdale Cup as well. And the Trawlerman's also shown his versatility. Of course, the Ascot Gold Cup at 2.5 miles, and now he's adapted really, really well. And long distance cup, you drop down again a little bit. So that may be what was the issue.
Okay. And of course, Trawlerman, was it 3 years ago? He'd won the Ebor. Incredible. Yes. Incredible record he's put together. From the Lonsdale Cup to the Nunthorpe, and I hold my hands up. I mean, I kind of dismissed as for her after the season that she'd had. I said, you know, she's been behind the 8 ball all the way along, behind, you know, in terms of a prep for Royal Ascot and etc. But fair play, Connections actually were very bullish going into the Nunthorpe, and so it proved.
I felt for Connections when the ground went wrong for them on the previous run. And I felt for them then at Goodwood. They'd come in their repertoire with already winning the previous year at Royal Ascot, and then went as 6-4 favourite in the Nunthorpe last year. So the form kind of tailed away a little bit, but it didn't. Coming into this race, it was kind of, you could argue, a weaker Nunthorpe, but might be being rude, and she was the only Group 1 winner in the race. I mean, everything's easy in hindsight. And then as the stalls opened, all her Christmases came at once. Everything came at once, and there was Night Raider, and Asheen was able just to sit in that pocket behind Night Raider, and if as we may or may not have thought, had her retainability from last year, here we go, and so it proved. There were some amazing runs in the race. It's sad that in a way it was dominated the race a little bit by the draw, being that Night Raider and Co were on the far side. Ain't Nobody ran an absolute screamer, and we might see Ain't Nobody at Ayr, or they might set their sights higher. Frost at Dawn run another cracker.
Very game.
The year of Johnny Portman. I mean, watch that run again. And Rumstar, who'd have thought Rumstar unseating his rider, being very naughty in a Stewards Cup, I think it was, and then a couple of years later running in a Group 1.
Steve would have, because Steve's been his biggest fan. So I'll give you that. Yeah.
And then poor old JM Jungle was on the wrong side. Yes. Not that I don't think he'd have caught us for her, but she is absolute dream and class, and kind of in a way a replication of Hortensia, but that little bit better. And I don't know whether they stay here or they disappear off, and we bid them farewell and thanks for really embellishing wonderfully our York Ebor meeting.
As Tanya has mentioned, there are a couple of people who were talking about the quality of this year's Nunthorpe. What about the performance of the winner and the context of those that she beat?
I thought it was a good performance. I thought you could have probably called her the winner after about 2 furlongs. Was travelling well, and you knew that she'd quicken. I slightly questioned how much ability she'd retained. The fact that they'd lent for headgear this year, hadn't really ran up to form in the first 2 starts, but absolutely brilliant for Henry Dwyer. I think Amy Murphy has obviously been involved a lot with the training, her stable in particular. So yeah, really good. I think we might still see her in the Flying 5 and possibly even the Abbey. So might get a couple more runs from her this year. I felt bad for Frost at Dawn. I thought she just lost it at the start. If you look back She was 16th fastest out of 17 to 20 miles an hour, and Michael Barzalone just had to use that little bit of petrol early on in order to get in that prominent position. But she's run so well again.
It's very rare to see her break from the gates, not lead.
Yeah.
Actually, he had to. Night Raider came across in front of Barcelona, and I thought that's where the race was lost for her. I couldn't see her getting back in it. But to be fair to her,
she
stuck
battled on so well. In a year where all of the sprinters have been up, down, she has remained consistent, has ran a race every time, and I was giving her a good cheer late on. But like you said, ain't nobody fascinated to see whether they go for the Aegon Cup or for Markham 99. We're definitely pretty well handicapped on that.
Okay, the City of York is the next race that we'll talk about. First time it was run as a Group 1 at the Ebor Festival, and it went the way of Never So Brave. Again, a bit of a bunch finish. Lake Forest finished off the race really well. Marino Charlie on ground that I thought would have been a bit quick for him has run a cracking race. Rosalian, back and forth. Thankfully, Steve Malish is not on this show today. What did you make of it?
First thing is how I got Never So Brave beaten off 101 at Chester on his reappearance.
Good question.
It was a really good race to watch. If you stop it 2 furlongs out, you've got 10 of them in a row across the track, which I think York should be applauded for the feel that they got. A couple of weeks ago, you thought...
Bit lucky, though. They got a little bit lucky.
Slightly. Yeah. You kind of looked at it and went, oh, God, this isn't going to be the strongest Group 1. And then, obviously, Rosalian gets rerouted. You get a couple of supplemented for the race. But watching it back 2 or 3 times, I thought Lake Forest was unlucky.
Yes.
In the way that he was ridden, just had to kind of go wider than Tom Marquand would have liked. He was going to go in and then went out, had the fastest finishing speed percentage of 99.31%. So they did go hard in the early stages, which probably meant that the likes of Never So Brave and Lake Forest were in the right position, being held up off those. Marinoa Charlie was up with the pace. You could probably upgrade that. And like you said, the ground probably was quick enough for him. I know they did come over to have the faster ground as opposed to the softer ground from France. But I thought he was probably the one to take from the race. Never So Brave, the quotes afterwards, obviously he's received a 10-1 quote for the QE2, but disappointed at soft ground on Ascot last season, so wouldn't be an anti-post bet for that. Machine Murphy does think stepping back up to a mile would suit Never So Brave, but I wouldn't be back in anti-post just with the reservations around the ground later in the season.
Okay. Field of Gold still remains a 3-1 favourite for the QE2. Rosalian is 6-1. Diego Velasquez 8, Fallen Angel 8, Dancing Gemini, Delacroix 10s, Henri Matisse and Never So Brave 10s.
Apparently Rosalian's going to go round to the Breeders' Cup on Sky Electrics.
Yes.
Your thoughts?
I think the race would suit him.
I think it would.
I think fast ground and a proper pace where he can just sit in and travel.
Yeah.
I don't want to keep making excuses for him, especially if Steve Malish is going to listen to this.
Yes, he is.
But when they came out the gates...
race over.
The race was almost over because he sat parked out wide. Ryan Moore knew exactly what he was doing. He kept Rosalian out there. And Sean Levy had 2 options. One was to shoot him forward and use up petrol and go round them to sit handy, or take back in over 7 furlongs, drop him back in trip on a quick 7 furlongs as it is at York. He might have ended up being the Lake Forest run, just not quite getting there. So he was caught in no man's land. Having said that, how many more times people will say to me, especially, how many more excuses you can make for Rosalian? I'm not making excuses for him. He got beaten fair and square on the day. I will like to see him run in the Breeders' Cup on fast ground with plenty of pace and just get a nice draw. And I really hope Sean Levy stays on board because I don't think Sean Levy's done a lot wrong on it. I've seen some people mentioning that he needs to be replaced. I think he needs to be given a shot at a race where everything pans out for him. But you can't keep making excuses for them. So, Tanya, what was your take on the race?
He can't help where he was drawn. He was drawn stall 11. I know that people argue that Never So Brave was drawn 7, but Quinault shot out in front and you had to be within eyesight of Quinault was your sort of guiding light, as it were, and lucky enough for a few of them, the French Raider ran an absolute belter for me, absolute belter. Had only just been beaten a whisker in the Prix Jean Prat by, is it Wood Shawner?
Wood Shawner, yeah.
Who then went and finished behind Sajir in the Maurice de Geest. So there is Group 1 form, and I think people There was not enough made of Maranoa Charlie because they just didn't know too much. They probably looked and thought, who's Woodshawner? And a little bit of an insult because it was pure Group 1 form coming in.
Horse.
Serious horse.
2-year-old, they said that this might be the best horse around.
Yeah, he went off too fast over a mile.
So I take that one out. And Anaf I'd take out. I don't know what they're trying to do with Anaf, but Anaf just sat travelling.
Yeah.
And then because it was run off so fast, Anaf sat travelling and then came through. But a hero of the race, which no one has mentioned, is Kirat.
Oh, yes.
Kirat was in the race, and because it was a Group 1, and Kirat was in a Group 1 in his own right rather than being the sort of pacemaker, as it were. A Sussex, I mentioned you got a Sussex Stakes winner in it, but he only got beat 2 1/4 or 2.5 lengths.
Yeah.
He wasn't far behind his friend in Rosallion, and he was ridden in a race in his own right. And I felt he did himself proud and showed that he should be more and more in black type races in his own right. Yeah. Obviously, he'd had a hard race in the Sussex, but maybe next season we'll see him to better effect in Group 2s, and he'd be a strong performer. But obviously, never so brave. But I'm going to keep an eye on the French Raider. That, goodness me, that just raced from the off and stayed there, not beaten far. Yeah,
So the Breeders'
didn't
Cup
stop
race,
racing.
We'll see.
Sure, Breeders' Cup mile betting. Notable speech is the 92 favourite of Bet365. Henri Matisse 5-1.
At the start of the season, notable speech at Rosallion. Neither have won a race all year. Amazing.
Soul Rush is 6-1. Rosallion 7-1. Field of Gold 15-2. Never So Brave 8. Opera Ballo, I think it's really interesting. He's
tremendous.
10-1.
They still need to go softly this year, and then next season, then go Lockinge, Queen Anne. He still needs to grow up this year.
Yeah.
He's
got so much
He
ability.
runs and then he sort of.
But
but he's
I don't think he knows what he really wants to do.
No, he's just brilliant, isn't he, Opera?
If you went over to the Breeders' Cup this year.
Brilliant horse, Opera Ballo.
Okay. The meeting, of course, is named the Ebor Festival, and in the race itself, this year's Ebor, you could call Ethical Diamond the winner, a long way out turning for home. 1 or 2 hard luck stories in behind, but Ethical Diamond absolutely cruised into the race. I was watching William Buick's body language, just thinking he must really be enjoying this.
So obviously I had my eyes on Real Dream, and the 2 furlong out, Joe Levy just kind of pokes his nose in to try and block in William Buick, but William Buick has so much horse under him on Ethical Diamond that he just goes, no, I'm right, and comes through. And I thought it was, again, a brilliant ride to get this horse to settle over the trip. I've seen people say, oh, he's going to be an Ascot Gold Cup horse next year. I wouldn't dream of running him over that trip. You can see why he was a Royal Ascot winner over a mile and a half, because he's just enthusiastic throughout his races and needs that held-up ride. It's going to be really interesting to see how Willie Mullins campaigns next year. If you look at his hurdle rating, he's off 143. It wouldn't be a very Willie thing to do to target the UK early on in the season, but can you imagine a Greatwood hurdle off a mark of 143? It would...
good pace, bounce off.
It would be absolutely perfect, because he'd get his ground early on in the season. He'd get a strong pace.
Yeah,
but
there's no market for the Greatwood at
no. But I thought that would suit really, really well. Obviously, the race dominated by the Irish once again.
And Tanya, obviously, we could all say how well William Buick's going. Were there any hard luck stories in behind that you felt maybe a horse could have finished closer, something to keep in mind for future?
I got one for I thought Fleetfoot got no cover and pulled too hard, and Fleetfoot probably came out too quickly after the Gorham Park run, just ran around the outside and it just got buzzed up. Shadow Dance stumbled badly down the back straight, and I don't know what happened to it after that.
His finishing effort was a bit poor.
Yeah, I just think his confidence got totally knocked, and especially when you're in a
tight pocket,
bit claustrophobic as well. Willie Mullins potentially's got a Cesarewitch winner, which Jamie Spencer rode absolutely brilliantly. Yep. An enormous gangly horse, Charles, who ran in the Triumph Hurdle, who has got a Cesarewitch entry in the Irish and our one at Newmarket. But if you watch him carefully, he's just too big for himself at the moment. And Jamie tried to weave him through just in behind all the runners, and it was too short for him, the Ebor trip. Too short. Ethical Diamond is absolutely different league. If you rewind back to February 2024 in the Spring Juvenile Hurdle, it was 50-1 for that. Yeah. He was totally detached, and you saw his acceleration in then. I watched Ethical Diamond and watched him decelerate as he were. William was sitting with a double handful going 40 mile an hour, about 2.5 furlongs out, 39 mile an hour, about 2 furlongs out, and he decelerated from 39 to 36. So I thought, right, here we go, we'll watch Absurd, because you could have layered on both runs how they came down. But Absurd got under pressure a couple of years earlier. As it happened, Real Dream was his lead horse, as they were on the far side fence down the back straight. Absurd decelerated very, very quickly from, as you'd expect, like every Ebor winner, from 39 to 34 in a matter of strides, whereas Ethical Diamond was easing across the line, going from 39 to 36. It's a total, so I mean, yeah, you don't go up in trip. As you said, William was sitting there thinking, I've got double, what do I do, you know? Yeah. Here we go. One of the, if not the easiest Ebor winners I've seen, with so much potential, and I think it'd be unfair to go to Greatwood with the it'd be nice, obviously, if you pick that up, but having seen it run so well in a juvenile Grade 1 hurdle, Ethical Diamond's year it may be. Yeah. Yeah.
I just remember looking at Buick turning in the stretch, just thinking, I wish I'd backed you. Because the race is over. Yeah. The race is over. We must talk about one other race before I open the floor up to, and that is the Prix Morny. It looked a good race on paper. We saw the horses that are lined up for it. There was a Wesley Ward challenger as well. But Carl Burke's opinion that Venetian Sun is something special, well, it was franked by what Royal Fixation did during the week at the Ebor in the Lauder, but it was taken to another level by what Venetian Sun did in the Prix Morny. Yeah,
beating Gastard in so well, and they just were racing from the off. They really were racing from the off, and Venetian Sun just carried himself so well. It was a phenomenal performance, but I am worried because I've looked through previous runnings of the Prix Morny, and they're all either 2-year-olds, so they barely go on and win big 3-year-old races. There are a few that are amazing, or it's the seconds that perform better, like in '97 Tsar came second and was the superstar. Nevers, Natagora was second, Special Duty was second, Havana Grey was second. But perhaps history is now going to shine where we're going to see something really, really special. Talking of 2017 Havana Grey, then if Carl Burke says that he feels Venetian Sun is just something else, then and maybe we're seeing 2 absolute diamonds in Venetian Sun and Gastad. Maybe we are, but just looking at previous Prix Mornys, that will, and yeah, I mean, plenty of them, I say plenty, 3 or 4 have gone on to win Commonwealth Cups, but beyond that, that's it then. There's nothing. You don't get 4 and 5, and
Well, it's interesting because obviously he views her as a guineas horse. So she's 7-1 with Bet365 for the 1,000 guineas next May. Composing is 10-1, 16-1 bar those. That obviously brings in Royal Fixation. I definitely see what Tanya's saying about the Prix Morny as a guide to the future. But it's fair to say that Venetian Sun physically has always suggested, and you can see it when you see her in the flesh, and when Carl Burke is saying, this is a horse for the future, this is a horse that will get a mile, you can see by the way she carries herself. And what I thought was good about the performance is that she was off the bridle. Yeah. Wise Approach has come to challenge her. She's seen Wise Approach off and then kept enough up her sleeve to see off Gastard as well. I thought it was a really strong performance.
So did I, and Carl Burke's justification for the early chat, because it was pre-debut and it was pre-Royal Ascot when he was talking about her in the same sort of light as Fallen Angel and Lawrence, and you kind of thought at the time, hang on a minute, these are quite big words here. But he's set out his campaign always saying that she's going to be a guineas horse for next year, and has quietly gone over six furlongs. I think the step up in trip next time to 7 furlongs in the Moyglare will definitely suit her because she was off the bridle quite a way out. It's just going to be how the Starman's train on next year. Like, he's had an unbelievable year with his 2-year-olds, and that is going to be a question mark going forward. But looking at her physically, when I saw her at Newmarket, there's no reason why she shouldn't train on.
Yeah.
I thought it was a really good race. I'd probably upgrade Stad because he obviously had that hold up that meant that he couldn't run against True Love, whether they were ever going to run against each other. But he ran like a horse that was just slightly short of work for me, travelled well, then was off the bridle, looked as if he was going to drop out the back, and then stayed on well towards the finish, kind of just hit that flat spot in the middle of his race. And he, again, looks like the type that will train on next season as a classic contender.
Yeah. Okay, let's just open the floor up. There are lots of other good performances in Victory, but you wanted to mention horses that got beaten as well, Tanya, so away you go.
Where do we start? Let's start 150 Wednesday. Kendall Roy had an amazing season last season with 4 victories, had a slow start this season. Last time out was just ahead of Cuban Grey. At the Curragh, then came to York. What a run that was by Kendall Roy. Finished 4th. Watch that back. 4:10 Wednesday. With in mind, no doubt, hoping at that point Alfonso Legrand was still entered in the Ebor but missed out in the ballot. That is so worth watching. I mean, I potentially said that Charles will go into the Cesarewitch. If you watch the run that Alfonso Legrand had, he's still going to try and defend his crown, no doubt. Thursday, didn't think they went fast enough for Crepe Suzette, and considering who her dam is in Sultanina, who is just oozing Group 1s, Crepe Suzette with a faster pace. Well, just another year or more experience. I think there was lacked in experience. One of my favourite horses in training at the moment, a 2-year-old called Daydreamer for Tim Easterby. Now that is, you could fit all the troops of Troy in there and still there'd be room. And I think David Allen realised that as Daydreamer turned for home in this 2-year-old contest. And I'm thinking, where are you going to run next with Daydreamer? Because it just seemed he was too big for himself. And then suddenly, without asking him, he's eased through the field, got bumped a few times. 4:45 on Thursday. Watch Daydream. He's an absolute darling. Absolute darling. And his form had been franked already when another Easterby run had come out won easily going into this York race. And then in the 5:20 on Thursday, Most Our Dreams showed that the current mark is really, really workable. And although this Jim Goldie runner is entered the never-ending list, I think she's number 130 in the Air Gold Cup list, put that aside. Maybe he's thinking Sunday Series coming up at York at September the 7th, or maybe Jim's thinking somewhere else. And then Friday, how well did Spice ran? The life plan owners have Spice as well, and that ran really well. And let's give a big shout out to Jeff Oldroyd, whose horses are running so well. Again. Yeah, Pocklington, and there was a couple of others.
Air Force One, Big Leader, and Pocklington, and obviously the same connection had Marino Charlie.
Yeah,
I think they had those 4 horses all beaten about half a length.
Yeah.
Very tough for that.
Daydreamer for me is a takeout horse, 2-year-old, and Tim Easterby, he's got
I'm hoping Daydreamer gets a bit of a form franking later this week. I think it's a Rogue Attraction who finished second.
Yeah, it's the third that's already come out and won very, and I'm thinking, I hope you run well the third.
Well, hopefully Rogue Attraction will win this week at some point. But some names, Kendall Roy, Alfonso Grant, definitely with you on that. Santorini Star won that race, and she was perfectly positioned in the race toward the head of affairs, and he's made it. He definitely went in my notebook. Steve, the floor is open for your summary.
Yeah, just on Crepe Suzette, I tipped her 33s in the Galtres and she was into about 12.
Oh, no.
Handicap markers blown, up £18 to 98 following that. But obviously, with connections, they don't really care about the handicap mark. But she ran an absolute stormer. Just a couple over in Ireland, Constitution River was really good in futurity. So uncomplicated, quickens, travels, stays on well. I fell in love with him in the parade ring at Newmarket before his debut. He's going to be a proper classic horse for next year. So's Composing. She won the Debutante Stakes. She's 5-2 for the Bet365 Fillies Mile. That's going to be a fascinating race where you could get the likes of Venetian Sun, possibly later on in the season as well. Acomb Stakes, I wouldn't give up on Italy. I thought he's just slowly being brought along this season. Again, he's a big frame as well. longest stride length, highest top speed according to Race IQ data. And Distant Storm again, he was an expensive breeze-up horse and kind of just knew what he was doing on his debut. But you need to remember in the Acomb Stakes last year, obviously ruled in court, came from an impressive maiden victory and finished third and then ended up winning the 2,000 guineas. So I wouldn't give up on Distant Storm, but I thought Italy was the one to take out of that race.
Okay. Definitely give another mention to Royal Fixation. She's really impressed. Obviously won first time out, bumped into Venetian Sun, second time was in front a stride or two after the line against Venetian Sun at Newmarket. And then I thought actually the way the race unfolded in Lauda, where she was sitting at the back and she was a little bit detached on the outside, I thought it was going to be hard work, but she blew by them. She's clearly a very talented filly. Wouldn't want to see her going further than 6, but I imagine the Cheveley Park, she would have a huge chance for that. Yeah,
that again was a brilliant ride by William Buick tactically because the finishing speed percentage was exactly 100%. And to have the confidence to settle a favourite off the pace and come through with your effort late on. Handicapper was impressed, giving her 111 for that performance.
And won a horse from Goodwood on Sunday, Moon Target. I know that she lost an unbeaten record, but just the conversations before and after the race with Sir Mark Prescott.
Genius.
She's also going to be going to the Bet365 Fillies Mile as well, I think.
She's that seems to be the plan. But the disagreement, not disagreement, but suggestion by some people saying that, me included, that maybe she'd appreciate slightly better ground. And then asking him the question, he'd go, I've thought of her as a firm ground filly. I may be wrong, he said. So it's not often that you'd be right. And, not often I'd be right and you'd be wrong. So let's just stick with that. But I think I don't think she handled the track and the way the race was run. I think the winner's a good filly as well, Precise.
Very
so I
nice.
Imagine both those two would be seen in better races.
Precise was travelling so comfortably in the race, whereas Luke Morris is trying to teach Moon Target literally how to run.
Legs everywhere.
They were legs everywhere, but she made me smile when she won at Yarmouth.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, oh great, Sir Mark's got a lovely horse here. We're going to have some fun next season at the end of this. And another one out of Goodwood, Belgravian. So we're going to have brilliant Cesarewitch if they, Alfonso Legrand, Charles and Belgravian. Let's hope they all go there.
Bolted up, Sunday.
Yes.
Sunday? Yes.
Sunday.
Okay, so that's a look at the racing that we've had over the last week in Racing Recap. And now before we get into our weekend preview, just to let you know that our sponsor Bet365 have a best odds guaranteed offer. It's available on every single UK and Irish race from 8 a.m. on the day of the race. If you take a price and the SP is bigger, Bet365 will pay you at the bigger odds. Full T's and C's can be found on the website. Okay, the racing this weekend is not quite at the level as we've seen in the last week, but there's some interesting horses lining up. And in particular for the Solario Stakes at Sandown on the Saturday, Publish, who created quite an impression first time up, perhaps less of an impression when he won on his second start. He's 6-4 with Bet365, Pacific Avenue 7-2, Wild Desert 7-2, Xanthos 7-2, and then it's 12-1 Barthos. And in the 12-1 Barthos, he's got the winner of the Chesham. So potentially, Tanya, we could be talking about a very good race. And guess what? The Solario, John Gosden, obviously John and Thady Gosden now, with the horse at the top of the market. Yeah,
it's a race that they've dominated, but it's weather watch, isn't it? It is weather watch. There is, well, we're told there's rain forecast. To what degree, we don't know. And that may have certain significance if it does fall in some quantity. But we've got a great race. You mentioned we've got Publish at the top of the market, but we've got some unknowns. We think we know about Publish, and the beauty about Publish is that both runs have been at the track. So that helps us get some traction into the form. But that's not been group form. And Wild Desert, potentially, if it's a good race, if it's been a good race for John Gosden or John and Thady Gosden, it's also been a very kind race to Charlie Appleby. And he brings Wild Desert in, who finished third, but perhaps should have done better. It's just had no luck in 2 runs. He must hate the July course, Wild Desert, because on both occasions has found trouble in running. In contrast, Xanthos, I think maybe, and I'm being really harsh probably here, his form might be, his distance of margin of victory might be accentuated because he found the Golden Highway down the stands rail. I do like his Wallim. I watched that Beverley performance, and it was just like going down to the start.
Very green still.
I appreciate the times were slow. Obviously, I appreciate that, but he just was running well at a time as well, where you just James Tate to put a runner in here is just you've got to sit up and take note, because to go straight from that Beverley race, but where else do you go?
It's funny you say, when I look back at the video of He's Wallen's win at Beverley, 12 to 1, I was thinking I would love He's Wallen to have the lead.
Yes.
Lead at Sandown, break, get to the front, and then do what he did. Because actually, I thought he was going to be keen in the early part of the race.
He looked keen.
Then he dropped the bridle, thankfully,
Yeah.
but then he just picked up, and he was still running around a little bit in the closing stages. I thought 12 to 1, he's a bit of value at the moment. Thoughts on the winner? On who you think is going to win?
To be honest, what I'm probably going to do here, because of how well backed I think he's going to be, I'll probably just lay publish on the day. I think there's enough reason to take him on at the sort of price. And the way that he's been backed in his 2 starts, I think he'll end up going off odds on for this.
Yeah. And with their record.
I'd prefer to be having the field running for me. I know the Gosdens have a good record in this, particularly for Juddmonte, obviously Kingman and Field of Gold most notably. But the form hasn't quite worked out as well as we all expected it to. So if you look back, Pacifica Pier beat him on debut, could only finish 3rd in a novice, albeit under a penalty. The 3rd Key of Magic was beaten at 4 to 9 the next time. Corinth was 4th, lost the race in a Stewards to a 40 to 1 shot on his next start. He then beat Catullus, who, yes, won next time, but it was about 12s on. The 3rd that day, the Joker, was 4th of 5 in a novice the next time. Chapter was 4th and could only finish 7th of 9 at Kempton the next time. And then the 5th was 4th at Kempton the next time. So it hasn't really worked out as well as you would have expected.
Yeah.
And yes, there was lots of style in the victory, but I thought there was just enough to take him on at around 6 to 4. Charlie Upperby, Tanya's obviously spoken around a good record in the race, has a strong hand currently. William Buick, I just checked, is still dropped on both of them. Wild Desert and his Newmarket Conqueror, Pacific Avenue. It's worth remembering that Pacific Avenue was obviously in receipt of £6 that day from Wild Desert. And then we come to Xanthos, who she was the €1 million purchase from the Breeze Ups, was really impressive. I then went through and checked Solario Stakes runners that have been fillies. There's been 5 since 2008. They've finished 5th of 6, 6th of 6, 4th of 7, 7th of 7 and 5th of 11. Albeit, the shortest price one of those has gone off is 7 to 2. So they haven't been particularly fancied, but fillies don't have the best record in the Solario Stakes. But I just thought, the way that I think this race is going to shape up, I thought there was enough to take on Publish at the top of the market.
The one mitigating thing about Publish from his last run is that I imagine they would have loved him to have got a lead rather than have to do his own running. I think he would be better, judged by the way he ran first time out, just travelling behind. But I'm telling you, saying, we don't know about all the runners. He's Wallen's only had 1 start, Pacific Avenue, etc. Xanthos, I don't think we know enough about any of them to be adamant. And it's a race I'm happy to take a price on something bigger rather than going short.
I think you're totally correct there with the Publish. If you watch his second run, he was dropped out initially or missed the break as the stalls opened, and then because they just crawled, he ended up thinking, well, I just better get on with this. And but you won't want his Wallen if you're going to drop out, and then his Wallen to just lead you, and then as they turn for home.
And Sandown.
Because he's shown he's got a good little pocket of acceleration, Publish. If his Wallen has drawn you out, if we believe that he potentially has got the ability he has, then you're not going to have your acceleration left.
Correct.
I think humidity will also force the pace as well. So I think there will be a strong pace here, because he's obviously stayed the 7 furlongs strongly at Royal Ascot, didn't he?
Yeah.
Similar sort of track, stiff finish.
Would you say he was disappointing at Goodwood because of the track, or that maybe he's not that good because the Chesham wasn't that good a race?
The Chesham, most of the time doesn't actually work out too well. But I'm willing to forgive him that run, and I thought he's definitely going to be ridden up with the pace in order to try and use his stamina.
I wouldn't if Clive runs him, I wouldn't dismiss a bit of spirit, because Morris Dance I think is a little bit useful. If you, I don't think once Morris Dance went for it at Salisbury, I don't think a bit of spirit thought I better chase after this because I'm not going to get it. But I think Morris Dance is going to stay over a mile or even go further. This is the difference as well. And A Bit of Spirit now shouldn't be, if Clive does run him, he's in form now.
Yeah.
Never really out form, but he's certainly in form now. Don't ignore A Bit of Spirit either, because
he's 20 to 1 with Bet365.
Very, very sensible, not trying to chase that race with a Morris Dancer.
Okay, so if we were to summarise a selection, would it be He's Wallen?
He's Wallen,
and
if A Bit of Spirit runs, that one each way or in the forecast. Yeah.
Okay. And you are laying publish?
I'm laying publish.
Okay.
Because I think he'll go off something like 4 to 5 in this.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll take a chance on He's Wallen as well. I like what he did first time, and if he could get the lead, get the rail, and settle as he did beautifully. Yes, was still green in the closing stages of Beverley on his debut. Now, also this weekend is the Atalanta Stakes for the fillies. Now, there's a race in Ireland as well, the Snow Ferry, so a few horses are doubly entered. But Blue Bolt is the 4 to 1 favourite with Bet365. Alabea, potentially back for William Haggas. Impressive on her only start last year. Cathedral, 8 to 1 along with Alabea. Flight, Spiritual, Lady of Spain, Tens, Shuari, Skelet, etc. What wins?
I can see why Blue Bolt's head in the market. She was an impressive winner over this course and distance at listed level last time. I don't think she'll be allowed such an easy lead in this race, though. Won her previous 3 starts and was actually the first winner for Colin Keane since his appointment in these Silks, if you remember. Gosden's looked set to run both Spiritual and Cajole, but I thought just the one at the prizes that interested me was Flight. I know the 1,000 guineas has received some knocks form-wise, but the only victory of her career came in a maiden here last season when she bolted up by 4 lengths. She was second, beaten only a length in the 1,000 guineas. But she did also then run with credit at Group 1 level on her next 2 starts in the Irish 1,000 guineas and in the Coronation Stakes at Royal Ascot. This obviously represents a drop in class. She's had a break, drops down in class, and the fact that she hasn't actually won a race means that she's not going to be penalised for this Group 3 contest. And 8 to 1, you don't get many 1,000 guineas runner-ups at this price. And on weight-adjusted ratings, she's right up there.
Okay, 8 to 1, as Steve says. Flight for the Atalanta, Tanya?
Yeah, I just, in a way, hope it rains, because I'd love to see Alabea, who sat out last at Yarmouth, albeit I think the race was 8 seconds slow. She sat out last. Tom Marquand didn't have to do anything, and she just eased herself to the front and went. And this is the first time potentially we're going to see Alabea turn up next. Well worth watching that race at Yarmouth. I think what will be key will be the ground. We won't see her if the rain doesn't come.
Yeah.
So I better put in. I'd just be Alabea and all over her. She's just so impressed me to the eye at Yarmouth. So Blue Bolt and Spiritual might worryingly go at it together. Spiritual was brilliantly ridden at Epsom by Rab Havlin and then just scooted away from the field. I thought that was a brilliant run. So I'm looking a little bit at Cathedral, who comes in here with perhaps overlooked and some nice form, was favourite for the Oh-So Sharp Stakes when it was on good to soft, but had to give best to Merrily, and Cathedral could put in. There's so much interwoven form with all of them, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sweet Francaise already met Blue Bolt, and Cajole and American Gal and Chantilly Lace have met one another, so I just want to come across fresh, so I fully understand why Steve's going with the Group 1 form of Flight. I will go with Cathedral, but that's providing Alabea doesn't turn up.
Yeah, she's also 8 to 1, and I'm going to go with Chantilly Lace, who I don't think has got much to find, and with the predicted rain, given the fact that one of her most impressive performance visually came on her debut last year on her 1 start, came on heavy ground. I don't think that any rain we get at Sandown would be detrimental to her chances, and there's not a lot for her to find. I thought last time at Ascot, having to make the running or be handy not really suited her. She ran well in the Guineas. She thought she ran really well in the Coronation Stakes, so she's not got that much to find on anything in the race. So I thought 12 to 1 was quite generous with Bet365 each way. Chantilly Lace and the Atalanta. The Beverley Bullet also takes place this weekend. Regional is 2 to 1 favourite. Now, I was quite surprised because I'm assuming he's going to go for the race that he won, the Group 1 he won at Haydock.
I don't see him there, do you?
But he's 2 to 1 favourite for the Beverley Bullet. Adrestia 6 to 1. Red Orange 6 to 1. I mean, he could run them both. Kurdos 7 to 1. First Instinct 8 to 1. Art Power 9s, double figures. The rest, what are you making of this?
Beverley doing cartwheels. If they get regional, they're doing a regional and Art Power, Kurdos and the entries they've got. They're doing absolute cartwheels. It's well, I mean, he's been brilliant. He's Mr. Group 1 regional. He's still very good. He was third to American Affair and Frost at Dawn. He couldn't see last time. Well, we don't know whether he could see or not, but his run was hampered by the fact that the noseband moved. I suppose if they do, I mean, there's plenty of entries. If they do turn up, the worry might be a draw, but when you're that classy, he would ideally possibly hope that he's drawn near Art Power, who I thought ran an absolute belter in the Lennox last year. It was ridden to perfection by David Allen in that Lennox last year. And again, last time out at the Curragh, where...
really good effort,
Really, really good effort. And if regional doesn't run, look at Art Power, who's got some good form, but that was behind Baccaneto Forte, wasn't it, at the Curragh. I mean, he's just superb Art Power. He may be old, but he's not old in the style of his running. So it's regional and Art Power for me, and it'd be interesting if they're drawn, if there is a big field and they're drawn apart.
That's kind of my sentiment. If regional runs, I like him. If he doesn't, Art Power, really enjoyed that comeback run where he was fourth at the Curragh. Steve?
Would you be slightly concerned about the drop in trip for Art Power at this stage? I just thought he'd slightly lost a yard of pace. Whether he can...
He hasn't run over 5 furlongs for a while.
No.
That would be my only concern. But if the rain arrives, then obviously that will
help
slow the field down. That's my only reason not to get stuck in on regional. He's rated 114. This is going to be his best opportunity to win. Obviously, he hasn't won since the Sprint Cup in 2023. But if you look at it, he's been beaten less than 2 lengths on his next 6 starts, including, like Tanya says, in the King Charles, the third stakes at Royal Ascot. Go back and watch the Prix Maurice de Geese. Like, the noseband breaks, then covers half his face, and then turns into a cheek piece for half a furlong, and then flies off. Like, you could happily ignore that.
Bless him.
I think he probably needs 6 furlongs these days, but he's just much the best in this race that he should be able to get away with 5 furlongs. If a lot of rain does arrive, and we still don't know how much is going to arrive, that would bring Kurdos back into it. He was the first 3-year-old to win this since 2010. He obviously has good form. His last run on soft ground was a win in the Temple Stakes, which obviously is a Group 2, 1 from 1 at the track. So Kurdos if it rains, but if regional does turn up, he really should be winning this.
Okay, so we've looked at the Solario, the Atalanta and the Beverley Bullet. Is there anything else from this weekend coming up that you wanted to throw into the mix before we get to best bets of the weekend?
Yeah, just a couple. Another one at Beverley in the opener, the 130, the Silver Cup, Individualism. Finished second over this course and distance on Sunday, beaten only a length. That was his second runner-up effort from 2 runs at Beverley in his career. It was 14-1 with Bet365, which I thought was a big price. Obviously, being run on Sunday, we haven't seen the amended mark, but obviously we'll run off the same mark if he was to run in the Silver Cup. You mentioned the Snow Fairy over at the Curragh, the 327. It appears that Wathnan has bought one look following her win last time.
Oh, happy days.
She'd have a penalty to shoulder in this, but it will only then come a couple of weeks before the Matron Stakes. But if you look back at her form, she finished half a length behind Porta Fortuna in a Group 2 there in May, and that is much the best form. So whether they actually take up that engagement is another one. I'll save my best bet, and there's just one more at Sandown. Danger Man. I was lucky enough to be at Sandown last time when he won over a mile and 2. He was a strong stayer at the trip. He's gone up £9 this time for his victory, but ever since they've fitted him with blinkers, he is shown much improved form, and he'd probably bid to make all again. Yeah, that could be a really good race, that handicap at Sandown on Saturday. Danger Man and Sadad, who's still got an entry in the Champion Stakes for Roger Varian. 4-1 joint favourites. Who does not love Anderlecht? If you do not love Anderlecht, then you've got issues. What a lovely horse he is. He's due to run in that 10-1. So is Rogue Millions, if he goes, possibly interesting. Anything else?
Yeah, we better give a shout out to Chester. They've got a listed race where William Haggis could have the grip on it. He's got Hamish, but that might come with stipulations, that running. But he's also got Sam Hawkins in the race. So I suppose that the betting really isn't strong enough because of whichever. I should think it will be Sam Hawkins. I don't think there's enough for Hamish to be a runner, so I'll go with Sam Hawkins in that Chester listed stakes. It was won by Absurd.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just to add to the mentions for the Snow Fairy, it's possible. I mean, Falling Snow still got an entry in that. She's also got entries in some other Group 1 race. Haven't seen her so far this season. And Sand Gazelle, I think, is going for that race, but the form of her York win, where she beat Rainbow's Edge, got a significant boost when Charlotte's Web came out and won nicely at York. It's Crep Suzette that went in behind Charlotte's Web. That. So yeah, I think she'll run all right. Sand Gazelle, tougher race obviously, and the Irish Cambridgeshire takes place also on the weekend. Godwinson entered for William Haggis. If the rain comes, I'd be happy to take a chance, even though he's obviously gone. I think he's 104 now, but looking through the race, there's not a great deal of unexposed horses in the race. I can see Godwinson running well. Okay, so that's a look at what's coming up, but we still have our best bets of the weekend to come. But before we get to that, just to let you know of a free-to-play 6 horses challenge. It's available every weekend with free spins on offer if you get 2 or 3 selections correct. Prize pools available for 5 and 4 correct predictions, as well as a jackpot for all 6. As usual, the T's and C's apply. So it's time for our best bets of the weekend, or the week ahead. Tanya, you are first up, please.
Oh, that's very sweet of you. I mean, we don't know whether it's going to be regional or Art Power turning up in the Beverley Bullet. That's a shame, because if we'd know, I'd go with regional. But let's go for it. Solario Stakes, he's Wallim.
Okay.
He's Wallim in the Solario Stakes. Let's hope that's James Tate. And I think Clifford Lee might be booked as well, and he might be very confident at the moment. Fair play to him. Yeah,
he's having a great season. So in the Solario for Tanya, he's Wallim. On Saturday, Steve.
I'm hoping the rain arrives, not only for my grass, but also for Hamish in the 240 at Chester, the Chester Stakes. There is plenty of rain forecast. Hopefully it arrives and it gets enough that Hamish is allowed to run. He's an 8-time Group 3 winner and 2-time listed winner in his career, including on his only start this year at Goodwood. They'll campaign him sparingly. He wouldn't be an anti-post proposition at this time at 5-2, but wait for declarations, and if there is enough rain for Hamish to run, I hope he wins the Chester Stakes.
What an old hero Hamish is at Chester this weekend. And I'm going to Salisbury on Friday for a first-timer and a handicap. 1 mile and 6 is the distance, and the horse is called Mission Possible. It's a horse trained by William Haggis. She's making a handicap debut for Marcus 69. She's had 3 runs so far, obviously. She finished in mid-div at Kempton 2 starts back, but she hung all the way up the straight. Eventually, when she was pulled out, watch how she finishes. She stays on really nicely. Then she goes to 1.5 miles at Fosslas, and she finished 3rd behind Enable's sibling Zilfi. And again, she's staying on quite nicely in that race. Just a small field, but she's staying on. She goes up to 1 mile 6 for the first time. She's given a mark of 69. She's by Dubawi out of a mare who is a sister to Japan, Mogul and Secret Gesture. If this horse trained by William Haggis, ridden by Tom Marquand, who has got an outstanding pedigree, isn't better than 69, then I will be shocked. So hopefully at Salisbury, late in the day, I think it's might be after 7 o'clock, 7:30 or something like that. So a bit random with the time, I couldn't remember it. But Mission Possible, Friday, Salisbury, 1 mile and 6 furlong handicap. Put that in your notebooks. And that's it. Tanya, thank you very much. Are you out and about this week?
Out and about shortly, not so much this week, but we're going to be going to Yarmouth and the Western meeting. That's there for it's one of my just love the complications of trying to find the winner of the bronze, silver, and so yes, going to Ayr. Yes, I am out and about racing soon.
The Ayr Gold Cup might be easy if Almarac runs in it, but I'm not sure.
Yes.
Steve, are you out and about?
I'm back to Pony Club on Thursday with Betsy again. That went well. She fell off last week, but she.
Get back straight up?
Straight back on.
Straight back on.
It was a big refusal.
Really?
But no, she was straight back on.
Excellent. How's your riding going?
Yeah, all right.
Yeah? Good. Cricket?
Yeah, it was all right. We lost by 7 runs on Sunday.
Not your fault.
I hit a relatively fast 18 in 15 to try and chase a big total. Yeah. But yeah, we'll see how we get on Sunday instead.
Okay. miss my cricketing days. But thank you both very much. That's it for this episode of Racing Weekly, brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. Thank you very much to Tanya Stevenson for being back on the show. Steve, as always, for joining me this week. As always, if you like what you heard or watched in this or any of our previous episodes, then please leave us a kind review on Apple Podcasts or in the comments section on YouTube. And please, I know what you're all going to say about Brazilian. I accept it. I accept it. We are going to take a short pause, and we'll be back, obviously, next week to have a look ahead to the Sprint Cup at Haydock. But for now, from the Racing Weekly team, bye-bye.